People, what the fuck was that? I can't believe it. I'm in shock. I'm still in shock. I woke up late. I'm not gonna lie, it was Luton Town. Do you know what I mean? I had a stream prepared for 5 o'clock this evening with Zach from Chelsea TV, Zach from Football Daily, Sky Sports. We were just gonna have a nice, calm stream about the game, the Wolves game, and just business as usual. And I cannot believe what I've read this morning. I really can't. I'm actually in shock. I'm still getting to grips with it. I'm still reading all the news. But one thing that I have to say is that this fan base cannot turn on Tuchel before he's even arrived. I kind of felt like this was going to happen. I said after the Leicester game, I felt like he needed to part ways respectfully. And to be honest, it's not shocking. Do you know what I mean? It's not the most shocking departure. Maybe the timing is a bit shocking for us because we expected it to happen. I expected it to happen after Leicester, the day after Leicester, and it didn't. And then we were told that he's got 3 games. And really, evidently, what the situation is that he didn't have 3 games. What he had was Luton to say his goodbyes. I think he shaked hands with every single Chelsea player before the final whistle against Leicester. And then Chelsea immediately started, and you saw it with Simon Johnson on TalkSport almost leaking it himself. You saw it with Frank Lampard's mannerisms after the Leicester game where he didn't seem himself. I've been saying for weeks that I didn't feel like he was himself in press conferences, in interviews. And he said very clearly he doesn't have any control over what the future will hold. And that for me is a clear sign of a man who's on his way out. And I felt like after that Leicester game, Frank Lampard, in that crisis meeting in the morning after the Leicester game, I felt like Frank Lampard was told in that crisis meeting that he would be leaving and that you will manage the Leicester game and we're going to replace you with Tuchel, but we have to, there's a whole heap of rules in terms of the pandemic. You need to do quarantine. Also, they needed to agree terms and conditions with Tuchel, probably do final checks that they wanted him. But after that Leicester game, I said it at the time, that felt like a game where a man will leave. It felt very similar to Jose Mourinho. That game was horrific. That Fulham game wasn't good either. And I said it at the time, and I said it a few weeks ago, that I felt if this club was ever in danger of top 4, they would cut loose. And people felt like Frank Lampard would be given more time because he's Frank Lampard. And again, it's less time because he's Frank Lampard. It's the lack of experience. But you just got to thank him. Do you know what I mean? You got to thank Frank Lampard for what he's done. Do you know what I mean? Regardless, I felt it was too early for him, and I'm really disappointed to see that this is how it's gone. This is how it was almost destined to go because of the club that we are. We're not Arsenal. We're not Manchester United. Those comparisons with Ole and Arteta. We just don't run like that, people. This is a very ruthless club. It always has been, and I felt like people, were trying to convince themselves that it had changed, but really, that's just not the case. Do you know what I mean? But I don't feel like the project is over at the same time. But I have to thank him for last season. Top 4 in those circumstances, with that squad that he had, was a very, very good achievement. Regardless what you want to say about points tally and all these things, it was a very, very good achievement. And then, for me, it's just a shame that he didn't get a trophy. He's a winner. And it's a massive shame. My test merchant says players complain lack of tactical instructions. That was a quote that came out. That was something else that came out 100%. The days afterwards, and I felt like the players knew that he was on the brink as well. Blue here says also no one could insult Roman no matter what he does. He's probably one of the biggest reasons why we have these players and why 100%. So we're starting to see a lot of Chelsea fans who can't keep their cool. Sorry, hold on 1 second. We're starting to see a lot of so-called proper Chelsea fans who can't keep their cool. Listen, I understand you're disappointed. I mentally checked out last week after Leicester. That's when I made my video saying we need to part ways respectfully, because I felt like this was going to happen. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't one of these people that felt like this club was going to be able to finish in outside the top 4, even look like it, and things not change. That's never happened. But you have to keep your core people. Do you know what I mean? You can't go slagging off Roman, slagging off Tuchel before he's even got here. You need to show that you're a proper Chelsea fan. And like I said last week, Chelsea is bigger than Frank Lampard, and I feel like a lot of people have blurred the lines and they've got that very, very confused. But I have to thank him for last season, man. It's for me. The biggest shame is that we hired him too early and he wasn't able to do, for me, what his peak powers could have done, even though he did a great job last season. And then on top of that, it's a shame that he didn't win a trophy. I think winning the FA Cup last season would have made this moment a lot easier, but unfortunately not. And like I said, I felt like he knew this from last week. You look at the way that he carried himself in that interview as well with Liam, regardless of whether he's right or wrong. Frank Lampard is never that emotionally charged or like that in an interview. And I felt like, again, he knew, Liam knew, Simon knew that he was on the brink and that he was probably on his way out, regardless of that Luton result. And that's probably why he snapped as well. You know, again, human beings under severe pressure start to say and do things that is not normal to them. And that's what this last few weeks has shown in terms of Frank Lampard towards the end of his tenure, is that the quotes in the media have not been as spot on and as consistent as they have been last season and early this season when there was no pressure. So this is someone that loves the club, lives and dies by the club, all-time leading goal scorer. Of course, this is going to emotionally hit him, and that's when you start to see these quotes and you start to see these things happening. For me, you know, I'm looking at the Athletic report here. I've seen the quotes from Roman Abramovich. You never ever get quotes from Roman Abramovich ever when a manager is sacked. So that just goes to show the magnitude of the situation. People also felt like Petr Cech being in the backroom staff was going to help him somewhat. Again, there's no friendships in this game, bro. It's a ruthless game. People's jobs are on the line in every way, shape, or form. So that's just not how it goes. But a part of me, you know, like I said, it's mad to see. It's a shock. It's massive respect, 100%. The shirt behind me, the photo behind me. Don't come down. It doesn't come down. Do you know what I mean? The poster stays up regardless. Like I said, you remember him for what he did in his peak powers as a player. He's an incredible player. Manager, not so much. You know, really good first season. Second season wasn't great, hence the predicament we're in. But he's not a top manager. And I've been saying this on debates with people. Is he top 8? Is he top 10? Probably not. So, you know, Chelsea need to do a project. You need an experienced project manager to up your percentage chances of the project actually going well. Just because it's a project, it doesn't mean it's going to be a good one. It doesn't mean that it's going in the right direction at every checkpoint. It doesn't mean that just because you give someone time that it will work out. And that's probably what Chelsea board are thinking here, is that, yes, we do want a project. Yes, we do want, and I don't know how long the contract is for Tuchel. Someone said 18 months. I don't know. But when you're doing a project, you give yourself much higher percentage of it being successful if you employ someone who's experienced in doing successful projects previously. And Frank Lampard doesn't have that experience. But what he has done is he's brought in a very, very good squad to put that together. Polar Bear, respect to the shirt behind you, 100%, bro. He's put together a very good squad. And this is why I don't feel like the project is over. I feel like it's just starting. You know, a lot of Chelsea fans maybe felt like the project was Frank Lampard. For me, it doesn't. That's not the way it goes. The project is Chelsea Football Club. Frank Lampard was part of the project. He brought in some great players to help another progressive manager like Tuchel, another attacking manager like Tuchel in the future. And now, you know, the next person has an easier job. Just the way, you know, Frank Lampard had an easier job from Sarri. I know Chelsea. A lot of people criticize the Chelsea board, right? And I know a lot of people are not happy today. But if you can see the progression of the way Chelsea are going in terms of the football they're trying to play from Conte till now, you can see there is a progression to set up something long term. The manager might not be long term, but the ideas, the thought pattern of trying to bring in young players like Hudson-Odoi under Sarri, like Ruben Loftus-Cheek, the thought patterns of trying to play attacking football under Sarri and then Lampard, that is consistent. So the way that Chelsea are going is consistent. It's not like Chelsea have sacked Frank Lampard and now they're getting Allegri and they're going to play, you know, a more pragmatic football. They're going to bring in all of these older. Tuchel is very experienced with working with young players. He worked with Pulisic, etc. So the overall project is still heading in the same direction. It's just very frustrating for Chelsea fans to see that it is not with the consistent manager. But again, I felt like when he was appointed Frank Lampard, they knew that he wasn't experienced enough. And this was very much a circumstantial thing where we had a transfer ban. Let's bring in Frank Lampard. It wins brownie points with the fans. It buys us time. Jody Morris as well. They're very experienced with the academy. They know the academy players that we're going to have to use. But like I said, do you have the experience to take us to the next level? Do you have the experience to take us to the level that is now expected with these new signings? And that is the question, and it's not a guarantee. And that's only, you never get a guarantee in life, never. However, you get a higher percentage when you go with someone who's done it before. That goes in any walk of life. I Test Merchant says at least Tuchel will try Christensen as CDM. I mean, it will be interesting. Now I've got to rip up my whole ideology and ethos for what I envisioned Frank Lampard trying to do, and now I'm going with Tuchel. So I'm going to be learning a lot about Tuchel in the next few days. I was meant to have Raphael Hogenstein potentially as well on the channel as well to talk about German shortlist, because all of Chelsea's shortlist have been German managers. Now that Tuchel is going to be arriving, it will be to talk about Tuchel, hopefully, if we can get that done. Dami's going to be coming on as well in 1 second. Hold on. Ken Berry, Mason, Tammy, Reese, Billy, Tomori, Hudson-Odoi, Lampard has advanced the new backbone of Chelsea Football Club for the next 10 years, 100%. You have to give him massive credit for that, huge credit for that. If you give him credit for nothing else on the football pitch in terms of tactics and whatnot, you have to give him huge credit for turning this squad over and turning it into a fantastic team that can now go ahead and be successful with someone more experienced. Kovacic, Rudiger, Alonso, Kepa were the traitors. Again, people, I'm not going to start effing and arming and swearing about traitors and whatnot, because if I'm being completely honest, does Kepa, a player that the board are not even convinced by, Kepa, a player that the board are probably trying to offload, is he now a traitor? Is he now someone that had some sort of hierarchy? He's not John Terry. He's not Lampard. He's not Didier Drogba. He's not Ashley Cole. He has no say or no influence over who is in charge and who is not. The board, frankly, do not. If Lampard was getting results, then this would not have happened. And I'm not going to start pinning blame on Kepa, who, by the way, would have absolutely no influence on a sacking of a manager, because he has no future at Chelsea Football Club, Kepa. So Kepa is not influential enough to be influencing anything. The fact of the matter is that people talk about squad unrest and whatnot, okay, but the fact of the matter is that the board didn't feel like results were going to improve quick enough for us to make Champions League football. And I said that last week. So, like I said, we're all going to look for scapegoats. We're all going to look for people to blame, whether it's Kepa, Rudiger. And you know I don't even rate these players. So the fact that I'm even sticking up for them is absurd. However, you know, like I said, there's just no way in hell that these players had the influence to make a mark on Roman Abramovich's decision making. Hence the quote in it. We're gonna have Dami and Laurenz actually join us, because Laurenz has just texted me there. We're gonna go from the 10-minute mark. 1 second, people. I just want to keep going through these super chats as well before we bring in the guests. I Test Merchant says Tuchel needs to apologise for the Denver bar, then it's all calm. To be honest, I haven't looked into that situation, so whenever it's brought up, I have no idea really what happened between those two. So I have to go into it. I need it explained to me by someone who actually knows what's going on in terms of what happened in detail. Tuchel screams 2-year cycle, but we must back him 100%. I don't think Tuchel is going again. I don't think when Chelsea appointed Sarri, I don't think it was 100% perfect. When Chelsea appointed Lampard, I don't think it was 100% perfect for them. They're not stupid. They know that a manager at Derby with 1 year's experience is not enough to manage Chelsea long term. However, Tuchel the same, not perfect. They apparently wanted Nagelsmann. But one thing I always said about Nagelsmann is, do you have guarantees that Nagelsmann wants to come in the summer? Do you have guarantees that you're going to be in top 4 for Nagelsmann if you keep Lampard? These are both massive question marks, and there's no guarantees. And there's no guarantees that Tuchel can turn it around. But what there is a guarantee with Tuchel is that even if he can't turn it around this season, next season when he has a pre-season, he's going to be in a stronger position, because he's going to know this squad. And then he's also got the know-how and the experience to lead this team to higher heights than an inexperienced Lampard does. And that's just, for me, you have to just accept that in terms of managerial experience is a huge thing, and we undermine it far too much. And like I said, Nagelsmann even has a decade plus of coaching experience. So like I said, I just felt like patience was going to run out. I didn't expect it to come after the Luton game, hence why I was in my blood clot bed, chilling, vibing, enjoying life. Next thing I know, my phone's pinging off. I wake up on 10% battery. Lampard's gone. Athletic have, shit up all over the timeline with all their reports. People are crying. There's tears flowing. It's a madness. But if you were watching the channel from last week, I was trying to mentally prepare you for this. While giving my opinion and saying that I felt like, yes, it was time for him to go, I was given a lot of logical reasons as to why that was, and really mentally preparing you, because I feel like it's and maybe this is the last time it will happen, but getting emotionally attached to a Chelsea manager these days with the history record that we have is borderline pointless. And I know it was never going to be possible with Frank Lampard. Even I was emotionally attached. But yeah, as I said, people, this is always ruthless out here when it comes to this situation. Dami.
Bro,
Dami, could you forward the link to Laurenz? Do you have Laurenz on WhatsApp?
Of course, bro. Yeah, have you seen the Shed's tweet?
I haven't seen the Shed's tweet.
They said fuck the board, fam.
Let me. So you send the link there. Let me go, because again, I don't want to.
Also, I've read the Athletic article. Jesus Christ, is that article is a 25-minute read? But don't worry, let me just send this to Laurenz, and then we'll speak about it more in depth. You know what I mean? Yeah, obviously, man that's in the chat, big up to you, man, in the chat. All of you watching right now, thanks for coming on to the stream, joining Matisse and I. Laurenz is going to hop on very shortly, but yeah, let Matisse take the thing. But
yeah, I mean, look, we are the Shed tweeting that is, again, it's emotions. It's emotions, and it's what happens when you get yourself and you distance yourself too far from reality. And again, I said this, and I kept this very consistent after the Leicester game and really after the Man City game. From the moment that you start imagining all of these moments where we're going to win Champions League, Premier League, but you distance yourself from reality, and the reality of the situation is when a report drops 5 minutes after the Manchester City game, there is something very, very, very wrong. Very wrong. Listen, and if you haven't, and the fact that people didn't clock onto that, and got themselves into a situation, you have to clock on. You have to take the signs. And again, 2-week break, no improvement. You have to take the signs when they come. Fulham performance, Leicester result and performance. Take the signs as they come. And you can scream about the board and whatever you want, but at the end of the day, Chelsea is not just an emotional attachment for us fans, it's also a business. And like I said, from the moment we start looking like we're going to drift out of top 4 race, that is when things get very sticky. They're not going to allow Champions League money to just run away from them. You look at Arsenal signing Odegaard as well. They're looking to they're pushing. Do you know what I mean? They're pushing to try and achieve some sort of European place this season. The Premier League is too competitive when you compare who Lampard is as a manager to the other managers in the league. It's too competitive for it to have allowed to run any longer with no sign of improvement. The performances were not improving. So it's ruthless. It's very ruthless. It's going to be very hard for a lot of people to take, but that is reality. Do you know what I mean? That is reality, and very important that you remain one of those people. That
Matisse, let me give. I know you just woke up. Obviously, you lazy boy. I rang you up this morning to try and get you up. Now, obviously, I'm messing. But I've read the Athletic article. And that is, I don't know if you've read it. I'll probably give you like a link or something to check it out. I don't know, Matisse can probably share it on later for those of you that subscribe to the Athletic. That is the most damning article I have ever seen. The board, let me just put it right now. Lampard from the very beginning was set up in such a way that he was always going to be on strings. Did you know that back in August, they had told
go through the report with me, because I haven't read it and I can't even.
So that's what I'm saying.
Let's go through it.
So basically, the Athletic said all the way back in August of 2020, last year, a source close to them, that is close to the board, basically said to them, look, that you know what? Once it gets to a string of 4 to 5 games where Chelsea start looking a bit iffy, that Lampard is done, fam. Do you understand? The board, they said this right from the very beginning. They wanted to Lampard was meant to leave last season, but the only reason why they couldn't sack him was because he qualified for the top 4, and he was also able to they wanted to get Pochettino. They wanted to get those names we're talking about, but because of how things unfolded, 2
names for me.
Exactly, those Pochettino was what the club wanted to get. Laurenz is messaging me like mad on WhatsApp, but these man, they wanted him gone, innit? there were people in the hierarchy that wanted him gone. And one of the things he broke down with Marina Granovskaya, because number one, when I was listening to you backstage when you're talking about Kepa and how the board didn't rate Kepa. Marina, obviously, she's clocked that was a mess up signing, and they've been trying to get Lampard to get him back involved in the team. Okay, literally, the whole thing is a crap fest because they tried to get Kepa back involved in the team, and Lampard was like, "Hey, you know what? I don't rate this guy in any way, shape, or form." And then he now said you should go out and get another keeper. The fact that we had some backroom staff left over from Sarri's tenure really pissed off Lampard, and Lampard was using his ego to push out stuff from within what's going on. And hey, you can say the Athletic article was taking the piss, but you don't get stuff like this out of the dust, bro. You know what I'm saying? They've obviously had this written out for a very long time. And once again, you have to respect the journalism. Once again, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to sit down here and say that everything they said in the article was correct because I don't work for the Athletic. I don't know like their sources. I don't have any sources in the thing, but I'm just reading and telling you what they said. You heard. I'm sure.
My thing is with Chelsea fans is we can't pick and choose when we believe the Athletic because the Athletic the Athletic journalists are some of the best journalists that you're going to get in football. They have managed to cultivate a group where you have the best journalists and the most in the know journalists in football all in one group working together. So if you're going to believe 100%. Them with certain things and then you're not going to believe them with other, then you're picking and choosing when you want to believe them. They're 100%. They're very how you doing, my man Laurenz, in the chat with us as well. They're very well known journalists. They're very well clued up, which is why again when we spoke about the Man City game, the report dropping 5 minutes after, I was so shocked that people didn't see that as a sign as to what was to come. Do you see what I'm saying? Because it was that was such that hasn't happened since what? When was the last time that ever a report dropped like that?
That has never happened. And one thing I kept telling people as well that they kept forgetting, these journalists, they rely on people trusting what they say. They would never, ever in a million years come out with an article as damning as that if there was no evidence. From what I've been reading, if you don't rate the Athletic, you rate Matt Law, innit? Lampard's job was done against Leicester. I said this to you, Laurenz. I said this to you, Matisse. You understand? We said it on countless streams. I told you the way that board meeting went down was, oi, bruv, we don't have a replacement yet. That's why you're still at the job. And then they've come out and done this in a very shocking manner. Nobody expected it to happen. Literally, you might know it. I was streaming earlier on, and like I said, this is one of those things where as things just came out and unfolded that way, I was shocked. But once again, it was kind of expected because the board would never have done that. This is I know. Have you read the statement as well? Both of you, have you read the statement?
I've seen the statement. Yeah.
Abramovich had to put in a word there as well. Do you understand? But when you look at all the nitty gritty and all the battles that Lampard had with both Rudiger, Kovacic, and a few other players went up to the board, to go and ask them as to what's going on with the tactics. Kepa was left out in the mud. As much as we all despise and don't like Kepa, like he said, Lampard didn't give him any form of tactical instruction. Basically, when all of us were talking about passion and vibes, it was not a joke because the players themselves were complaining to the board level. The Marine, Peter Cech, got in contact with all their different agents and was asking them what's happening. And they were getting all sorts of information. And people are going to call them snakes at the end of the day. You can call them what you like. Do you know what I'm saying? You can call them what you like. But all this does is it shows you that apart from Lampard being backstabbed to a certain extent, this reminds me of Mourinho 15-16. He also did not help himself in certain respects. Did you see what he wanted to sort out in July? He wanted to get Declan Rice and the Burnley centre back as our incoming signings. He wanted to get rid of Aspilicueta, Rudiger, Tomori, and I've forgotten the last person. Ziyech was meant to come all the way back in January, but the board messed up. They didn't decide to get him. So all those little things kept on messing stuff up. Abramovich himself, he said by Man City, Abramovich was done by Man City, and Leicester just put the nail in that coffin. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So literally, once again, you man can be talking, but I'll keep rereading all the stuff that's
let me go through the super chats before I get Lawrence's opinion real quick, because I don't want to miss out on these what people are saying here. Over one says, I had said top four was unrealistic after Leicester. Now we have a chance, but still will be hard to displace Leicester, Tottenham, Liverpool, and Everton. Now that we've acted, and yes, it is ruthless, but we've acted, in my opinion, what we had to do in terms of to get top four. I think we can make it, to be honest. It's going to be very interesting. I've looked at the fixture list. It's not that bad. it's going to be very interesting to see how quickly he can implement what he's trying to do. But I do think we can make it now. So it's going to be an interesting one. Polar Bear says, not going to lie, man, it seems there was never really a project, just a stopgap till the ban was over.
Exactly.
Worse
I'm sorry to cut you off here. Sorry to cut you off, because Polar Bear has brought up a good point. The board, some members of the board, and I'm sure we all knew this, they didn't want Lampard in the thing. But because they knew, like I said, they used this man. They used him like a wet rag. You understand? When you use them in the kitchen. It's kind of sad, isn't it? It's kind of sad. But that's how they did it. They didn't want, literally, I said in August, before the season started, in their heads, if stuff started going left, he was out, fam. He was out from the very, very beginning. He was done out, fam. So this man, from the very start of the season, was left to rot. Obviously, like I keep saying, he didn't help certain situations. For example, Rudiger and Kovacic went up to the board level to complain about this brother, okay? And then you now start playing Rudiger in the team. Of how is that going to help?
Yeah, can I just was that in the Athletic article? Because I read that and I didn't see that. Was it?
Have you read there's a super long article from? Can you see how long?
Yeah, no, I read that. I read all of it.
Yeah, it's all in the article.
I must have flown over that.
I mean, look. This is all very ridiculous and mad, because again, this just it makes it even worse, right? Because everybody bought into some long-term project with Lampard in charge and thought he was going to get ample amount of time, and it looks like, again, it just looks like as if it was just a stopgap. And again, it just backs up the initial point that I made in 2019 when I said we have appointed this man too soon. Because once again, it's Chelsea being selfish, Chelsea fans to an extent being selfish, saying that this guy needs to come in now and he's only got 1 year's experience at Derby. We're going to take him now, even though he's not at his peak of his powers, to survive what Chelsea have to dish at him from a fan's perspective, from a board perspective, from an expectations perspective. And it was just rush him in now. Let's get him in, because let's be real. If we didn't have the transfer ban, he would not have been appointed. And if we,
100%.
you know, and if he wasn't Frank Lampard, he would not have been appointed. No Chelsea manager ever comes from Derby after one season in 6th place. So again, just screamed of selfishness, screamed of stopgap, and now, you know, now you find out that's exactly what it does. What it was. For me, it's just the only person I feel sorry for is him, because he's being linked with the Celtic job now. That is really where he should have went in the first place. You look at the way Steven Gerrard's gone over there. You look at the way Steven Gerrard's gone over to Rangers. You look at the way John Terry's doing his homework under Dean Smith. These guys are doing it, for me, the right way in terms of the progression to go up. You talk about sending players out on loan to get experience. The same thing with managers. And he was rushed in too quick. I do want to go through the super chats quickly, and then I'm going to get Laurenz's opinion real quick. Dami, keep flashing through that article. Whatever.
Basically, I want to read out these 3 paragraphs. They're
hold on. Not yet. Just 1 second. Ahmed as well has said in something. It's a shame that he's gone, but now we have to get either a good interim. Yeah, it's going to be Tuchel, bro. It's going to be Tuchel. So you don't even have to do. You don't even have to do any guesswork in terms of who it's going to be. It's going to be Tuchel, and that really is the end of it. That's the only person available that they was going to get. We spoke about it when the report dropped. German-speaking experience. They laid it on a plate for us, people. Like, I know everybody got wrapped up in this Nagelsmann thing, but they made it very damn well clear after the Leicester game. There was reports dropping. Experience and German-speaking. Allegri was ruled out. The only other person available was Tuchel. So I don't understand why. It's not really that surprising.
I mean, I do think the idea was to get Nagelsmann in. That's why they tried to get Rangnick. As interim. They tried, but it failed, so they had to get Tuchel. No. I think they tried to get Rangnick until the end of the season, right, and then get Nagelsmann in the summer. I think that was their idea. Yeah, but Rangnick said no, so they couldn't do that.
Yeah. Like I said, this next set of lines are on the read up. Yeah.
Just 1 second. Let me get, because I don't want any of these to disappear. Ken Berry, now those nonsense decisions, Rudiger, J5 outcast to starting, etc. Frank has tasked with even more impossible job of upping the value of dead wood. I mean, look, there's always politics at play when it comes to Chelsea. And like I said, the squad being too big was certainly an issue, because he was maybe forced to play players that, you know, Marina wanted value in the transfer market, as opposed to playing the likes of Billy Gilmore more often, who actually needed to play in terms of results. And I said this as well a couple of weeks ago before I let Dami read out his quotes, is that I know it's not easy, and I know I don't understand the mechanisms of it all behind the scenes. But if you want to keep your job, results come first. They can't sack you when you're winning, so you have to prioritize. you have to be brave enough to prioritize the players that you want to play and that you think can get you results. And Billy Gilmour, not playing against Fulham, not playing against Leicester, hampered us, in my opinion, because he was mobile enough to play in that role. You saw how he played. I know it was lesser opposition against Luton, but he played very well against Morecambe as well. He was a player that looked like he could change the dynamic of that midfield ever so slightly. Wasn't going to be monumental, wasn't going to be long term. Still needed to get a DM, of course. However, he's better suited to what Lampard wanted to do than a Jorginho and a Kovacic. And for the moment you can't please everyone in this life. Same with social media. From the moment that you try to, again, I know it's probably borderline impossible because you're trying to do what the board wants you to do. But from the moment you try and do what the board want you to do in this game and play players that really the board don't understand tactics, they don't understand player profile as well as a manager should, then you're setting yourself up to fail, because then you're forcing yourself to use players that you're not comfortable with and you're not getting the results. Therefore, you're going to get sacked. Do you see what I mean? It's like you have no choice in the matter.
Some people are talking about giving him time. Like I kept on saying, once the players start doing that, let me read out this excerpt from The Athletic here.
Yeah,
the problem was the manager didn't talk to the players. He only spoke to the ones that he liked. One such source explains, I know of players who went in the team that didn't hear from him for many months. Months, bro. Months. How can you have a team of players and you don't speak to them for months? That's very frustrating for a player because you don't know what you have to do better, what the manager is thinking. It's crazy. Obviously, when Chelsea won their 17-match unbeaten run, the coach is not going to make too many changes, but you still need to talk to the people. Players are going to be worried about knocking on the manager's door themselves because they can be perceived negatively. And another person said, it was very weird for me that Lampard's way of working was to be distant from the players. He was a player until very recently because he retired in 2016, and he should have known how to approach players, but he seemed to have forgotten. My thing, and I keep taking from this Athletic article, once again, I don't act like I have a source. Matisse does not act like he has a source. Laurenz does not act like we have a source. But all these things are things you could see if you had taken off your sentimental goggles and actually looked at it. It was so clear as day that there were issues in that squad. There was no coming back from that. The only people in that dressing room that were ready to play from that Lampard were the likes of Thiago Silva, who has tweeted and put out on Instagram how much he loves the man. The likes of, what's his name, Mason Mount, who is obviously made captain yesterday, and then maybe a few Tammy Abraham and the others. But the rest of them, players were going to... Do you know what it means for a player to go to the board to complain, fam, about a manager? Literally, stuff was all over the shop. And one I keep telling people is, the cost... Do you know Lampard was on less than £4 million a year? And that was another thing that had him pissed off because he asked for more money and Marina didn't want to give that to him. You can check in the Athletic article. I keep referencing that. Anyone that wants to drag the article in the mud, that's none of my business. I trust the Athletic, and if you choose not to trust them, that's your business. But for me, once again, all those little things and little elements are just showing that this man from the very beginning, he was set up in a way that was not beneficial to him, but he definitely didn't play his cards right. I kept on saying he had the arrogance of Jose Mourinho, but he didn't have the CV, okay, as a manager. Once again, his player CV speaks for itself, but as a manager, he did not have the CV to actually be able to carry a job out in the way he did it. Can you imagine being a player and the manager does not speak to you for months? They didn't say days, they didn't say weeks, they said months. Kepa, all of them broken in confidence, and these men were out there. He didn't speak to them. The board that's an area of his game. That's an area of his game I expected to be stronger was man management. But Laurenz, I want to get your take on what was your initial reaction when you saw the headline from a fan's perspective? Because obviously we've gone from an objective standpoint. I want to get the real fans' perspective of just how it felt to read the headline after you saw it. Because obviously I wasn't awake.
Yeah. You know, I'd only been awake for a little while as well, and then obviously I have Matt Law's notifications on, so I get that notification to my phone, and I'm like, really? Like,
sorry,
really,
Lauren, can I read this out?
No. Let Lauren, hold on, just let Lauren speak for a second. He has
honestly, like, I was just shocked and baffled because, you know, Dami makes a fair point, and the Athletic article and the situation made it very clear that the decision was made after Leicester, but we were just trying to sort the replacement. Which is fair enough, and that's why it happened today. But it was, I was still shocked. I was still shocked, and it's like, you know, I think a lot of people, I think including you, Matisse, as well, are in the same boat. That's kind of why we had certain hesitations when the rumors started flying about that Frank Lampard would be appointed in the first place, because we didn't want to have to experience what we're experiencing today. That's not what you want as a Chelsea fan. You don't want the likes of a Lampard a Drogba, a Terry, if that ever so happens in the future, to go through what we've gone through in the last 6 weeks, 2 months, and now the sacking. That's what we really, really didn't want. But because Dami has referenced the Athletic article so many times, I think there's a lot of damning things about Frank in there, but there also is a lot of damning things about both the players and the board in there. The fact that the Athletic were told in the summer already, once Frank loses 4 or 5 games, he's done. It last summer already is crazy. The fact that Frank Lampard was in the job thinking, I actually want to leave, but because it's Chelsea, I won't, and feeling like he was pissing against the wind. That is crazy and not a situation that any manager should be in, and even less so a manager that is a legend like Frank Lampard. I'm not saying he should be given more time necessarily than anyone else should at all. If anything, maybe slightly less because his CV doesn't give him the right to earn the time. But he shouldn't be in this job feeling like everything against him. Maybe it wasn't true, but he shouldn't even be made to feel like this. This shouldn't be the situation. And some of his targets seem a bit questionable, the likes of Tarkowski. And obviously the Rice one is a tricky one. Seems like we're definitely not getting Rice now after, again, what the Athletic said, that they were even getting pissed off at him consistently asking for him. But there are also other things where I'm like, you probably should have tried harder to get him Ziyech last January. There are certain things that they should have probably done better. And the fact that apparently the relationship between Marina and Frank deteriorated so drastically at some point, and I'm not criticizing Marina at all because I think she's one of the reasons why, even though we've struggled for a fair few years now, we're still squad-wise and club-wise so close to the very top. But the fact that she's falling out with every manager we ever have, maybe she needs to work on a few issues she has as well. Because if you fall out with everybody and you're the what is it? The person that's involved in everything.
On top of that as well is the fact that this is a man that really was not ready, and I feel like but I don't want to say I never want a legend at the club again, but I'm very opposed to it because usually it's to cover up any deficiencies at the club that is going on currently, like a transfer ban or anything like that. It's to tug at the heartstrings of the fans. Lee Gunner said it very well. Sentiment can kill your club. It's killed mine. And what he meant by that is the fact that if you have a situation where your club is going through a rough patch, sentiment can sometimes cover up objectivity. And it was a situation where he was not ready in the first place. And I felt like if we're ever to bring in a JT or anybody, they need to be a top manager. You need to they say that before you even go for the job, you need to merit being in the room. You need to merit actually getting the job. Take name out of it. Would you be a candidate for the job? That's how it should be. And if you're not, then things like this can happen. Let me go through some of these super chats here. Polar Bear says maybe Lampard was never seen as anything more to Abramovich than a Gus Hiddink. Frank Lampard wouldn't quit ever. That was the problem. Screams Di Matteo Champions League. That's an interesting point. I mean, I don't know if they initially, of course, nobody wanted this to happen. I don't think Roman wanted this to happen, but yeah, there is some logic in saying that. Look, he was meant to just pass the torch on to someone more experienced, and I think a lot of people caught onto that earlier, and they were kind of shut down by Chelsea social media, especially on Twitter, as to be negative it wasn't something that I said. It was something that other accounts would have said. They were shut down as being negative or as not liking Frank Lampard or whatever, because again, emotions getting in the way. Some people have been able to split objectivity with Frank Lampard a lot quicker than others, and that's where the problem lies. Wendell says, with Tuchel, biggest winners, Pulisic, Havertz, Werner, biggest losers, Mount, Hudson-Odoi, Tammy. That is a very basic way of looking at it, and I disagree massively.
Mason Mount, I think Mount will start every game.
Mason Mount, as much as people like to play this game of he's Lampard's son, and he's not, he is a player that a lot of attacking, progressive, high press managers and intensity managers will like. And he will play games. Maybe it's a shock to you, and you're just saying all of the English players will benefit, and all the German players will benefit, all the English players won't. That makes no sense. Honest to God, it doesn't make any sense, respectfully, because Tuchel is not going to have a German bias, but what he is going to do is he's going to be very good with the young players. He's worked with young players before, worked with Pulisic at Dortmund, very good for player development, in my opinion. And also, Not that Tuchel was my first choice. Obviously, you guys know he wasn't. But Mason Mount, Hudson-Odoi, player development wise, they will be good for this. Because as I've said, you know, Frank Lampard is not an experienced manager in terms of player development. Also, he's still very inexperienced. He had 1 year as an academy coach, then Derby. He's not exactly the most experienced person you can get to develop youngsters. Same goes
and
for,
I'm glad that Jody Morris as well is off the cot.
And you know, Jody Morris is off the books as well. Like I said, I wasn't really, you know, too keen on him being so high up in the system as he is. I felt like we could have got a better assistant manager to help Frank, a Steve Holland, someone more experienced, but also someone just for me who carries themselves a little bit better. I haven't really been too impressed with the way Jody Morris carries himself on social media wise, and it's something that I respect the academy coach. I respect his accolades and what he's done, but there's something about Jody Morris that didn't sit right with me. It really didn't.
Never ever did.
Never ever did. Do you know? Never, I know for a typical Chelsea.
Remember, Matisse. Sorry to cut you off. Remember that podcast we did back in April of last year when we spoke about Morris? Remember that? I can't forget from Morris. I just felt like he was not going to help anything out. But yeah, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, I know for a lot of people he's a Chelsea man, and you know he's literally the definition of a Chelsea man. So the older crowd will definitely gravitate to him. He's obviously been at the club a long time, was a player, academy coach, etc. However, for me, there just was something there that just didn't sit right with me at all with Jody Morris. It's just from a professional standpoint and just from an experience standpoint. Go on, Laurenz.
I think Jody Morris as an assistant or some sort of coaching role under a different manager, under a more experienced manager, is fine, because I think it's in general important to have someone as part of the coaching staff that knows the academy so well, especially when it's the club's aim and hopefully Tuchel's aim to like include the academy and include the youngsters. But of course, he has done certain things off the pitch, whether that was when he was many years ago as a player, whether that's things recently that, you know, I can't talk about, or whether that's, you know, the things that he's done on social media. Because there are certain things that he probably shouldn't be doing. And, you know, if he wasn't best mate with the manager, these things probably would have had bigger consequences.
It's a shame, man. It's a shame because, well, the thing is with Lampard is I think he's going to return in the future, potentially. I think he's going to become a great manager. So, you know, part of my logic was that I was actually hoping that this wouldn't free fall into a really, really bad run of form that actually is detrimental to his future career in terms of management. So I'm not happy with this. No one is. But I am a little bit relieved that it's finally over, because I felt like it was just becoming this soap opera every single week about Frank Lampard, about his future. You know, fans 50-50 split either way. I mean, our fan base is always going to be split. Well, when you have this type of emotion involved as well, it just becomes, it loses objectivity as well. So I think, you know, it's a relief that it's finally over, because I didn't feel like it from the moment after the Leicester game. I didn't feel like it was going to work out anyway. And it would be nice if he got the Celtic job, went head to head with Steven Gerrard, you know, had that battle out in Scotland, got his experience. Brendan Rodgers did the same, got his experience at Celtic as well. It's a league where you can get yourself some silverware. You are expected to challenge. You can dominate a little bit. Obviously, Rangers are a lot more powerful than when Brendan was there, so it's a little bit more difficult. But he just needs to get his experience. He needs a decade minimum of experience. Go to different clubs, keep testing out what you're trying to implement with different players. Work on everything that makes a top manager. And then in a decade's time, it would be great for him to come back on merit, on the fact that he's got the credentials to be here and win stuff. That is what everybody wanted. You know, that is what I wanted. I didn't want him to come here, finish top 4 and get sacked mid-season. I wanted him to come here and win everything. I wanted to dream. Do you know what I mean? Win Premier League, win everything. Win the top accolades you did as a player. But you can't do that when you don't have the experience at this level, in this position to do so. You're just asking too much. You're asking a student to run a company. It's too much of a big difference. We might Jose Rice Rudiger will be first choice. I want to get Lawrence's take on Declan Rice in a minute in terms of the likelihood, because a lot of people are very hung up on that. What can you know? Again, so I will address that very quickly before I go to the other point. It's not that Jody Morris did anything wrong. Is Jody Morris best for what Frank Lampard needs at the time? So I had no problem with Jody Morris being part of the setup. He came in to help the academy in the transfer ban, and we needed people that knew the academy players. Makes sense. But for him to be that high up as an assistant manager, when you've had in the past, Ray Wilkins, RIP to him. You've had Steve Holland. You've got experience, and you've got an inexperienced manager. Tell me, does it make sense to have an inexperienced assistant manager? Does it? And I alluded to the fact that he wasn't doing much media. I didn't see many interviews from Jody Morrison when things were getting tough. I saw him speaking a lot on socials about Jose Mourinho last season when things were going well. When things are going tough, you need sometimes you need someone more intelligent than you to help you out. And Lampard is already a very inexperienced manager. To then have a very inexperienced assistant manager at this level, for me, it just didn't make any sense. I know it was his personal choice, so he kind of made his own bed, but please explain to me when you have two people that are so alike with their ideals, that's a great thing. You're on the same path. But when shit hits the fan, and we see in these last couple of weeks where it's squeaky bum time, as I said, with Olivia and Elizabeth on that stream, and the going gets tough, and you need someone who has a different idea, who knows different tactics, who has different credentials about them. Where is it? Where is it going to come? It was just two people learning, and when everybody's learning at the same time, and you don't have time to learn, that's kind of what happens. Do you know what I mean? You end up falling, so you fall together. So I just didn't feel like he needed to be the assistant. I felt like we needed to have a more experienced assistant. I just felt like that was the case for me personally. It didn't sit right with me to have two inexperienced people in a position that they've never been in before. Lampard, unfortunately, now know what it feels like to have parts of the dressing room turn against him as a manager. He'll recover at Celtic is a good shout. It's just a link that I saw with TalkSport. How serious it is, I don't know. Any updates, Dami, on that report?
Man is just looking for, and all I can say is right now, stuff is all over the shop. Do you know what I mean? All I can say to people that are watching is like, fam, I think everybody needs to take a step back and actually analyze the thing, because a lot of people have already gone on Twitter talking. You know how it is, Matisse. You know, we spoke about this fact. I fuck it. We'll speak about it publicly as well. You know how all these journalists, all of them love Frank Lampard so much. They're all going to come out here and try and drag the board. I feel like the board did him extremely dirty. You know what I'm saying? The board did him extremely dirty. The way they played their cards with legends. But once again, the club have done it to a club legend who won the Champions League. You know what I'm saying? The club have done it to somebody who actually got sacked in the tunnel in Carlo Ancelotti for finishing second. They've done this in the past. They've 100% done this in the past. And once again, all of us are all going to get emotionally attached because Frank Lampard, like I said, I have 8 jerseys with his name on the back of it. So it was inevitable. But I think we all just need to take his chill pill. You know what I mean? Take a chill pill, take a step back and actually just relax for this one, because it's one of them situations where we can't really do nothing no more. We just have to keep it moving because we can't afford to grieve for too long. Chelsea has a game against Wolves on Wednesday, and we need to start winning. It's not a matter of, XYZ, blah, 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 there's not too much more anyone can say. Do you know what I mean? Even Pep Guardiola has just said it himself very nicely. I'm going to paraphrase because I can't find the exact quote, but basically he said, in football,
I got Pep's statement.
You have it?
Yeah.
Dami, could you send the link to Lewis as well? I'm just seeing his message now.
But I mean, Laurenz, do you have that quote? I can paraphrase. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's on Pep on Lampard News. People talk about projects and ideas. They don't exist. Yeah. You have to win, or you will be replaced. I hope to see Frank soon and go to a restaurant with him when lockdown is finished.
Spot on. Simple and short. It's as simple as that. There's not much more we can do other than that. And once again, it's sad. I'm not going to sit down here and act like I'm happy or gassed or anything. But once again, like, it's happened and it's happened. There's not much we can do. All this the board shouts.
We spoke about it on the phone.
Yeah.
I'm slightly relieved. I can't lie. I'm slightly relieved because I just felt like it was just gonna continue to go downhill.
Yeah.
And it's not just because of Frank. We spoke about it. The makeup of the squad lacks characters to get themselves out of. They need experience. The one thing this squad doesn't need is inexperience. Inexperience in the coaching staff. Inexperience in anything. This squad is already mentally quite fragile in the fact that there's no real characters, there's no real communicators on the pitch. You know, if you're looking at Mason Mount getting the armband, which ended up really being a token gesture, which I felt was quite sweet, it was kind of sad in the end. And no one really deeped it, did they? No one really thought about that. When Mason Mount,
do you think he would have just started Aspie if he didn't think he would get sacked? Because obviously, with who started, Mount, Reece James, and maybe Zuma were the only 3 realistic options, right, of being captain. Do you just think he would have played a different team, or because of the captain?
Maybe so. Like I said earlier on the stream, I felt like he knew he was getting sacked from after the Leicester game. I think a lot of people said he shook hands with all the players afterwards, And
he did.
His quotes after the game sounded like a man that was on his way out. We're joined by Lewis as well. We're going to get his initial thoughts. And I just felt like that whole ending was so sad. It's the way that he ends up giving Mason Mount the armband as almost a reward to say thank you for sticking by me at my last couple of games. Fulham, Leicester, he was the best player really in both games, and he was the one that stuck by him. Lewis, what's your initial thoughts as a fan when you read the headline? Because me and you, we have bad sleep patterns, isn't it? So we don't. Do you know what I mean? To be,
I was surprised.
Lewis was down over this news. Like, I wasn't meant to be up for this.
Lewis is one of them dons that will say good morning to everybody at like 5 p.m. fam.
Exactly that, man. I do want to say, low key, this is a good morning because this is the news that we've wanted. All due respect to the man and the legend that is Frank Lampard. I do want to throw that disclaimer out immediately before anyone says I'm slandering his name. Yeah. But we wanted this. We wanted this for a good few weeks now. I'd say that for most of us. Laurenz, I'm not too sure if you wanted this, so I'm going to speak on myself. But we've wanted this for a while, so I'm not going to sit here and act all shocked or try and pull myself a bit further away from it now that news has been announced. It's happened. I'm glad that it's happened. I think this is the right move for the club. I'm surprised that we kept it to the Luton game, seeing as Tuchel is now the one that's coming. I thought the whole reason why we didn't sack him going into the Luton game was because we were looking for a different manager other than Tuchel. But now it looks like Tuchel's going to be the one that's coming in. And I'm low-key excited. Like, we're in the halfway point of the season. There's still 19 more games left to go of the season. Top 4 is still all to play for. Third as well. The higher you go up the table, the more optimistic you're getting, to a point where it's probably careless optimism. But look at the squad we have. It does depend on the first few results, but it's also a very favourable run of games coming up. Our next few games is Wolves, who are out of form, Burnley, Tottenham, of course, which is always going to be a tough game. But then it's also Sheffield United, Barnsley, and Newcastle. Now, there's still a lot of speculation.
We're going to win the league.
What?
We're going to win the league.
We got 2 gas last time. So
no, it's not even that. It's really just the fact that we have the chance of making Champions League football again. Do you know what I mean? It's a run of games where if you was going to make a decision on changing manager, this was the time to do it, really. Or, you know, for me, potentially even after Man City was the time to do it, to give him the weeks with Morecambe and everything. But we know the fixture list in February is disgusting. It's Atletico Madrid. It's hell on brimstone, fam. It's literally Atletico Madrid. It's Manchester United. It's Liverpool. It's ridiculous. So they were at a crossroads where either you're doing it or you're not. Because if you don't do it now, then there's no point doing it when the fixtures get tough, because no one's not implementing shit. But I think a lot of people in the comments are misconstruing what Lewis has said. So let me try and clear it up, because they're saying that we wanted this, not in terms of we're celebrating, but in terms of we felt like last week after Leicester. I'm not sure when Lewis made this decision in his head, but after Leicester, we felt like it was just going to plummet. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't really going to get any better. And performances, and he spoke a lot about in the media about, you know, desire, passion, application, running, and I get all of that and I agree with that. They wasn't, you know, applying all of those, but again, tactically, as a manager, you have to accept more responsibility for, and I feel like that's where, again, the players, if you're talking about players starting to not play for him, or players starting to down tools and not start to put in the hard yards, it's when you're consistently putting the blame on them. 100%, they may not be putting in the hard graft, but also tactically, are you doing what you can as well? Are you having the effect on games that you should be in, game management wise and things like that? And the fact that for me, he didn't take enough responsibility in this run would have pissed off a lot of the players, because again, I spoke about it before a couple of weeks ago, where players have group chats, players talk amongst players know who they've been managed by in previous tenures by other managers. You know, they've come from Nagelsmann, they've come from Tuchel, they've come from all of these managers. They know what a good manager looks like, and a manager who doesn't really know too much about what they're doing as much, or they're not as experienced, so they're not as good as the world-class ones. So these discussions take place, and this is where dressing rooms break. Dami, Dami's become our news outlet, because he just is through social media. Go on, Laurenz.
Because already when I came on, Dami was talking about like what the Athletic said and about players going to like the board and stuff like that. And obviously, like I think we're all in agreement that we probably had to do this right now, get rid of Frank. For me, it was as late as the Leicester game where I'm like, there's no point now. Even if my heart was still telling me you never know kind of thing. But in my head, I knew after Leicester is done out, right? But I will also say this: players, if those three mentioned names are the ones that did what Dami said they did, in Kovacic, in Rudiger, you said, and Kepa, was it them three?
No, I just read Rudiger and Kepa.
Rudiger and Kepa. If you're Rudiger and Kepa, you do not.
Sorry, Rudiger and Kovacic. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Okay, Rudiger and Kovacic. As Rudiger and Kovacic, you do not, and I mean, you do not have the right to go to any boards for like questioning certain things the manager does when you playing on the pitch play like an absolute garbage piece.
I mean,
like, no. You do not have that right. You are the employee, so do what the manager says. You might be unhappy, and there is a difference. Back in the day, when a Frank Lampard, when a John Terry, when a Didier Drogba were unhappy, they have earned themselves certain kind of rights by performances over years. Rudiger, his best thing was scoring 2 headers against Leicester last season.
I agree.
Other than that, all he caused was causing issues with Conte already.
On top of that, Rudiger was the player. He was in contact with Tuchel on a consistent basis recently over the last few weeks.
I don't care what they do they can talk to whoever they bloody want. I don't care. But going to the board is to me a very different thing. And in particular, someone like Mateo Kovacic, who to me completely undeservedly got Player of the Year last season. I don't think it was anywhere near that. He had about 5 really good games and was decent in most others and had some shockers as well. So I don't really know where that came from personally, because he looks great on the eye, but never does anything. You can't win Player of the Year as a rather attacking midfielder with 2 goals. It don't be working like that. It honestly doesn't. And the fact that they do things like that, to me, they should be scrapped immediately. I don't care who you are. And I still agree with that Lampard had to get sacked. But players acting like that, they need to be gotten rid of. Like, we can't have that. And, the Athletic article also said things like Lampard came in and knew that certain issues within the squad exist, which is what he tried to address over years by bringing certain players in, whether it's on the transfer market or from the academy, and getting rid of certain other players, because we can't kid ourselves into not realizing that this is an issue at Chelsea that's been going on for 5-6 years. Whenever things get a bit rough, the players don't stop believing in each other, stop believing in the manager, stop believing in the tactics. And at some point you said I'm like, well, we're going to have the same issue every time over and over. We're saying, yeah, okay, now it's good that we have Tuchel in because with Frank it wasn't working anymore. But we're going to be in the same situation. I hope we all realize this. The latest in 18 months, fair enough. Apparently they're only giving him an 18-month contract, so at least we won't have to pay him out. So that's a positive. But this will happen again. It happened under Jose, it happened under Conte, it happened under Sarri, and it happened again now. So as much as I still agree that Lampard was doing too many things wrong and it wasn't working, there clearly is an issue in this squad, and certain players need to be held accountable for consistently acting like
this. But
this.
Maybe it's a manager of more experience that needs to do it.
Yeah, but if it doesn't happen under Jose, Conte, and Sarri, you don't get more experience than those 3.
Yeah, the thing is, it's not even just about the experience. Once again, I agree with you. When you talk about the actual players we do have, mentality is a bombastical issue. Do you understand? That's a big, big issue. And once again, these players, like, we've been here before. Do you know what I mean? I remember Jose Mourinho 2015-20. I was distraught. Nazar, Diego Costa, Fabregas. Remember them lot? You know what I'm saying? At least those lot used to perform in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, those were actual players. When you've got the likes of Rudiger piping up to the board, you're like, what's going on? But once again, for all I've got to say is, like, a lot of people are dragging Abramovich on the timeline. They're dragging Marina. Once again, for me,
I'm seeing the Lampard in lot turning into Roman out, and it's like
exactly. So
really.
Exactly. My thing with Marina, once again, the board setting up for failure, okay? And what they did to him was dirty. 100% was dirty. That cannot even be taken away from that fact. You understand?
It was a clear PR move. It was a clear PR move.
The
rumor coming off the Athletic now, the lowest paid manager in the Roman Abramovich era.
But this is why I keep telling you guys, and this is the first time I'm ever saying this. This is why I will continue to tell people that you need to listen to other people's discussions. When I spoke about this managerial thing back last year, and I spoke about how the job was disrespected and it was a PR stunt, people called me crazy. Here you go. That's what you call ahead of the curve. You understand? Ahead of the curve. Now, I'm sorry, because I said this. A lot of people felt that, it wasn't a PR. It was a clear PR move from day one. It was clear that the club...
The same thing that's happened with Arteta.
It was so obvious. It was so obvious. A lot of clubs in world football at the top have been doing this for a long time. Do you understand? That board we have is ruthless. We've been known for years, fam. They sacked a manager for finishing second, okay? They sacked a club legend for winning the Champions League. They have done this in the past. The only difference is this time, social media is a lot more active, and you've got a lot more virgins behind keyboards, and you've got grandpas who know how to have iPhone 6s and 7s that can also tweet, so you get to see their opinions. And you have all of those extra bits and bobs in here now. But this thing, it's been happening for time, bro. Do you know what I'm saying? It's been happening for time. This is not the first time it's happening. Remember when we sacked, what's his name? Di Matteo. That was a big sack. He won the Champions League and got sacked afterwards. 26
Again, that's another man that was brought in for an interim basis and really didn't know what he was doing long term. That's the situation that it was. He won the Champions League, but he was very much carried by the seniority and the ability in the squad. And, we was very defensive. We got a bit lucky.
Hence why I think it's different.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's the same as Di Matteo, because Di Matteo was clearly not long term. He was actually brought in as an interim. He wasn't brought in at the start of a season with a 3-year contract and dressed up with this whole project. But Lee Gunner said this very well. The club loved to tap into the endorphins of the fans in terms of using these buzzwords, project, all of these things. And really, we never had a board that was ever going to allow us to sit around and not make top 4. I felt like there would be time for Frank in terms of, we could maybe this season make top 4 again and not win a trophy. Not winning a trophy is as far as this board will go, but not making top 4, this board will never ever stand for it. And there's been no point in the Roman era where a manager's been able to miss out on top 4 and there's been no repercussions. Never. There's a bare minimum, and I said this many times. There is a bare minimum foundation. Go on, Laurenz.
I guess Di Matteo didn't get top 4. He just won the Champions League, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, that he qualified through that way, isn't it? But there's always a bare minimum expectation and foundation at this club in terms of if you fall below these marks, you will be gone, regardless of who you are. And I spoke to my dad a few days ago. He felt like we could finish 9th. I said to him, "Are you having a laugh? Do you not know what?" Like I was like, there is no way, shape, and form. A, they're going to compare this to Klopp, and B, you can finish wherever you want. It's not a free season as much as what people wanted to believe. Did you guys get to read this super chat before when I was lagging out?
Yeah, we didn't read it out, but we saw it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go for it now. So I think there may be some friction between players in the squad. Tuchel has to come in and remnants doesn't fester. Let's see what he does.
I don't think any manager will be capable of doing that.
There is a very big squad here, and it's going to be very difficult for him. I can't lie. It's going to be very difficult for him to do that. The only thing I will say to these players is that, okay, Lampard's gone now. You're not going to get Tuchel sacked before the end of the season. It's not going to happen. Like, even if we finish outside the top 4, for me, Tuchel will still be here at the start of next season, and then your arse will be gone. So there's like, for me, it would be very, and I won't do this personally, it would be extremely unfair to a manager to come in mid-season. I think Klopp came in mid-season as well. Very unfair to say.
Boys, let me just interrupt. Fabrizio Romano just tweeted, Thomas Tuchel is the new Chelsea manager after Lampard's sack confirmed. Announcement expected soon. The agreement reached. The agreement has been reached, and here we go. Yeah.
So that was always going to happen, isn't it? That was the only other option. But regardless of if Tuchel doesn't finish in the top 4 this season, in my opinion, it would be absolutely ridiculous to sack him. Like he won't be sacked. So these players should know that. And like I said, some of them don't have futures here regardless. For me, Kepa won't be coming back into the fold regardless of who's in charge. Jorginho, I don't know if he really suits the league in terms of the pace. That it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Potentially, we're going to just see completely different setups. Rudiger now has a lot stronger case and stronger chance of staying here than previously. A lot of people thought that he was on his way out. He's probably not now. So until Tuchel makes his decisions in the squad the first few weeks and starts outlining who he wants to keep and who he doesn't, then we're not going to know who has a future. But these players, they're not going to force this man out for me before the end of the season with another act of treason. Emanalo was a good board member. Marina is a businesswoman. but she isn't a football director. It's an interesting.
I think that's waffle.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. iTest Merchant says irony of Lampard saying AVB too inexperienced. Yeah, there is a lot of irony in it, and like I said, there was a lot of things that Lampard was saying, and I don't know if you guys was keeping up with the quotes. There was a quote that came out that said manager experience is not the be all and end all, and maybe that was that was knowledge passed on to him by Harry Redknapp. Potentially, that's the kind of clue that I got. Which again, I'm not saying that you have to align with your thoughts of 10 years ago when you was talking about VS Boas extended, etc. But these comments just sounded like a man who was on his way out. It didn't make any sense. Lewis, what did you make of the Luton game? Because obviously we didn't see this coming after Luton, but Mason Mount getting the captaincy and everything, do you think that was a sign?
I mean, now that the news has been confirmed, it does feel like it. It does have a lot more of a feel to it. Before, I don't know, it felt like we were trying new things. I was actually low-key optimistic for the Wolves game based off the Luton game if we played a similar tactic.
I wasn't.
No, I mean, looking at I didn't expect us to go for Gilmore and Mount as the two DMs as well for the same sort of match. But seeing Werner playing in behind Tammy Abraham, that was just enough to make me feel a little bit more positive. He looked a lot more optimistic. We looked like we were playing with a different intensity in the game. We were a lot more quicker in terms of transitioning the ball from defense to attack. So I thought there was a bit more to look forward to, and I don't know if that. It's a lot of speculation now, but I don't know if that was Lampard trying to show flexibility, but same way it was a little bit too little too late, because by that point, they're already looking for replacements. They'd already been chatting to Thomas Tuchel. And if the announcement's literally been made 11:30 a.m. today, then it was way too far gone for him to have any sort of change up in the results anyway. But maybe it was his way of just trying to leave out on a good note. I know there was quiet rumours that Chelsea were going to give him the Luton game anyway to try and let him leave on a high note. I'm not too sure about the legitimacy of that, but it does weigh in well to this as well. So, I mean, it left us with a good note. It left us feeling a bit positive. It left me feeling a little bit optimistic. But with that in mind, it all means nothing now because he's sacked and he's out of the job.
Yeah. Do you know what it is? Yeah, it's such a shame that it's ended like this. I think the dream scenario would have been for him to part ways, more in a more amicable way in terms of he would maybe go out on a high in terms of the FA Cup or just finish the season. But again, it's just board calculating pros and cons, and they just were never going to take risks. Lowell Mount put the band on Kovacic. A lot of people feel like Mason Mount's not going to have a future in this team now. But it's for me, he's got a future. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely. He's a quality player. It's just we've played a system that works to his benefit at the detriment of 5 other players. We can find another system where, he isn't going to play as much as he did under Frank Lampard. He played literally every game under Frank Lampard. Yeah. Even as a 22-year-old, he doesn't need that level of game time. He can do it, but same way we're seeing by the time he gets to halfway through the second half, the kid looks gassed in nearly every match. So I do think it'll also work to his benefit as well to maybe take a step back, maybe to just be used more in a different way or to not be so heavily relied on as he has been under Frank Lampard's system. So there's no reason to think that just because Frank Lampard's left, it's going to be the end of Mason Mount. I'm sure he's going to be very useful and very reliable to a lot of other different managers as well, especially Thomas Tuchel and the style of play he has.
Yeah, 100% agree. And a lot of people obviously, will feel like the Cobham, again, I feel like the project is continuing, regardless of the change in management. It's still continuing. Tuchel's not going to come here and just dump all the young players and go with experience. He's not that type of manager. And he to be fair to him, he wasn't my first choice, but he is a very smart man. So, youth development and player development, I still feel like it will go in the right direction. One thing we haven't spoken about yet is the coaching staff. Obviously, they've all been relieved of their duties as well. Is Joe Edwards as well gone? Everybody, is it?
All of them are packing up their bags and their eyes.
Hilario?
What?
Hilario?
To I'm aware, so Lampard.
Yo, Lewis is cold for that.
Yo, three goalkeepers in a row have declined under this guy. You think I haven't noticed?
Yo. That is weird though. That Frank wanted a different goalkeeping coach, and the board said nah.
Was he not?
He wanted Jay Given. Yeah, he wanted Jay Given.
I don't know if he's better than Hilario or not. I couldn't tell you, but I know that he wanted someone else.
Jesus. But yeah, like I said, I know that his backroom staff, and most of them are going to be moving with him because obviously he's, as much as Lampard probably going to get a job within the next 48 hours himself. You know what I'm saying? Because he's going to be headed off to Celtic because that's
weird would that be, by the way.
Pardon?
Gerrard at Rangers and Lampard at Celtic.
Lampard at Celtic. All the way wrong. Your doors are going to be steaming. I can't wait.
What is the Yadars beef with Celtic? Because my dad
Chelsea Rangers, like they've got like a big
connection. I've never got that. Yeah, because my dad supports Celtic, so I'm
not sure. I think it's very dodgy connections as well. Something that we can't be too proud of, but the fan base is proud of. So same way, they all hate Celtic. So yeah, Yadars will be choking on their Stellas tonight. I can't wait.
Because I live in.
I don't care. These men have hated me for years. So cool. Like you man laughed at us when Sarri went out. All due respect to Frank Lampard, we wanted him out same way as well.
Right. Speak for yourself, bro. Hey,
Jesus.
Speak for yourself.
Ruthless.
Lampard, I've already said he should leave. All due respect to the legend, but we already know like it wasn't going to work. I'm only saying this because the Yadars, they don't carry the same energy.
Matt, do you want to go on around?
They don't carry the same energy.
I feel like you got a lot to say on that. They don't.
No, it's true though. It's true though. Like I'm cool with anybody who was Sarri into the end and Lampard into the end because that's consistency. Sarri out till the end and then Lampard out as well because then that's consistency. You want to see something that works consistently. You cannot have been Sarri out and not trust the process and then be Lampard in and pushing trust the process because that's just agenda driven.
They're two different managers completely, so it's hard to compare, and I'm not going to compare because but on top of that, there was a lot of hypocrisy, and that's what I didn't like. You know, I didn't like.
That's the thing that sticks with me still.
Yeah, I didn't like the hypocrisy. I didn't like people labeling fans as not real fans because they've got opinions on the manager when they're looking at it from an objective standpoint instead of an emotional one. Like I said, this channel is a place for everybody's opinions to come together. I don't just, you know, some people just like to have an echo chamber of the same opinion. If you agree with me, I don't do that. Like I said, I try to make sure that there's a variety of opinions on the table. So it's just, for me, that's the only issue is when you start belittling other fans' opinions. And really now those fans, whether you like it or not, they're right. They've been right for a long time, right? That he's maybe not up to the standard of managing the club for a long term because the board agree. So you know, you have to this is what I'm saying about respecting other people's opinions. When people come out and they belittle other fans because of their opinions and they say, listen, you're not a real fan, as long as it's done respectfully, there's not an issue. Do you know what I mean? It's an opinion. Do you guys think that Tuchel coming in will mean the end of Cobham? No.
If anything,
I've seen people already talking about Gilmour and them lot finished. Yeah, acting
why would that even be? Why would that even be the case? The club.
That's what I'm saying, isn't it?
The club have clearly for a long time wanted to implement youth, wanted to bring through. Gilmour is a quality. If anything, this just ups Gilmour's chances. Do you know what I mean? I don't understand why we look at it from this perspective of, you know, an English manager going out. So that means the whole English.
I think it's because Tuchel likes Jorginho. I think that's why people are worried about Billy.
Well, for me, yeah, but Jorginho is coming towards.
It's unfair for a manager that hasn't even signed the dotted lines for us to be jumping at conclusions when he hasn't.
It's true.
You know what I'm saying? It's true. So this is why I keep on saying. So these lot, and I need to hop off this stream. I need to go back to work. I oversee my lunch break. I need to go on a little rant because my thing right now, I swear to God, the people, okay, all of your tweets are bookmarked. All your tweets are bookmarked. They are screenshotted, and I have you all in my back pocket. You understand? The moment you start moving left and acting stupid is where we're going to have a bombastic issue. Because if you don't keep the same goddamn energy when it comes to backing the manager this year, you're actually in tatters. You get me? You are in full tatters, fam. Because this same energy about backing the manager and trusting a specific process, there was never a process. That thing that this man said, Pep Guardiola, there's a reason why he didn't sign for this club because he knows what we're about. You, man, have been watching Chelsea for over 20 years, isn't it? same as me. I've been watching this club for a long time, and we've been knowing how these men are going to move from time to time. So with Tuchel, as much as he was not my first choice, I'm going to back him the way I did Sarri. I'm going to back him the way I did Lampard. You understand? If Tuchel goes to crap, I will criticize him the way I've criticized Lampard as well. But best believe, if I catch anybody nitpicking, I've seen some people nitpick on Rudiger and Jorginho. As much as I don't like Rudiger, and as much as I don't really like, want Jorginho to stay here next season. For me personally, you've got to give this man time. You can't be making conclusions based on the same articles that you said were rubbish. Does that make sense? You man were calling these articles rubbish a few weeks ago, but the moment it comes to another manager, you've changed your tone. All of you, I can't forget. I'm not going to act anybody. Matisse, Laurenz, and Lewis, you might know who I'm talking about. Apart from them lot, the same people on Twitter as well. All of these people, I'm seeing you. You get me? Because this time around, I'm not going to sit down here and just allow people to ragdoll whatever they want. The same way you people treated Sarri, you swapped up nicely for Lampard. I kept the same energy. And with Tuchel, I will do the same. I've just tweeted about Tuchel. I didn't want him initially, but I'm going to let him do his thing. But you, man, okay? I swear to God, hype up differently for us. I swear, I dare you. I dare you, fam.
Do you think it's going to be a case where the guy, because we've seen this guys who are sorry in my opinion, are also the ones that have not given Lampard anywhere near the same level of patience they gave Sarri. Mainly because I can't put individuals into this. I can only put them in terms of groups, because otherwise we'll be here for ages taking people in and out of the equation. But let's just say the guys who are sorry have not given Frank Lampard the same level of patience because of the way Sarri was treated. Do you feel like now with Thomas Tuchel, it's going to be the same case where you got the Yadar lot not giving Tuchel anywhere near the same amount of time and patience because Lampard's been kicked out of the job?
That would.
I need to hop off here.
Yeah, no problem, bro.
I need to hop off here. Okay, no worries.
Bless, bro.
Right.
That in itself would stink of immaturity. If people were to start acting like that, that in itself would just again scream about not being able to not saying you should take it on the chin, but you need to be mature about the situation. We knew Frank Lampard has been under pressure for a while. It's not like when Barkley was loaned to Aston Villa and it just came out of the blue. You've had weeks to understand the situation that he's in. You've got your warning signs for weeks as well. I think our channels definitely flagged those warning signs up more than most in terms of not being blinded by the situation and not allowing, not just running the course and understanding, okay, cool, this is what he needs to do to keep himself in a job. This is the reality of the situation. If you're reading the articles that are put out by the trusted journalists, then listen to what they're saying. Listen when Simon Johnson almost leaks information on TalkSport. Listen when Liam Tooney puts out an article against Manchester City. Listen to your very well-informed journalists. And don't just, people like to read what they like and not what is read and not what is written. Do you know what I mean? If something is written that you don't like, you tend to not listen to it. Or if something is written that you do like, you tend to take it more as factual. Because it backs up your previous thought process, right? Whether I wanted this to, I didn't want this to happen in terms of the bigger picture. I didn't even want him to be in charge in the first place because I felt like it was too soon, and I was scared of this happening. This what we're experiencing now. I was scared of this happening, so I didn't even want him to be in charge in the first place this soon because I felt like if this happened, I would be heartbroken. Do you know what I mean? But you have to put clues together, put pieces together, and when you're given that many signs of the situation, then I understand people are angry and there's outbreak, but you shouldn't be slagging off the future manager who's got nothing to do with it. He's now coming in. People talk about Lampard coming in when we was in dire circumstances. Tuchel's now coming in when we're ninth. There's squad unrest.
He weren't even going to take this role.
Yeah, there's squad unrest. So now we have to get behind him, and hopefully he can turn the season around, and then he can continue to build. The reason why I'm not that angry is, one, I believe in Lampard to get past this now that it's over. I feel like he'll rise again. He'll have a good managerial career, and he can hopefully build the experience to get to this level on merit, not on name. And also because I think we have an opportunity now to actually continue to build. I don't think the project is over. So it's not.
Can I ask both of you guys something? Because for me, this is now, as much as I still thought it was necessary and it was time that Frank had to go. Is this to you the end of what at Chelsea we would look at as a obviously we talk about the managers with the revolving door thing. Do you think this will ever end? Because you can't, it's impossible to find 4 or 5 managers in a row that always have the same ideas. You won't have that happen. So once we are done with Tuchel, which I still believe will happen within the next 18 to 24 months, and then hopefully after that, Nagelsmann, depending on his availability, that will keep happening. Like I touched on earlier, this has happened for the last 3 managers. We had 2 very different managers in Mourinho and Conte who have certain similarities. And then we went from Sarri to Lampard, who at least football-wise have certain similarities. And now we're going to Tuchel, who is kind of probably a mix of the Jose's and Sarri's, if you guess, in types of successful experience and, attacking football, but also promoting youth. It won't stop. So will we ever really be able to sit here and say, trust the process? Can we really say Chelsea has a process other than we do something for as long as it works? When it doesn't, we sack it?
I think there's still hope that we can have a long-term. I mean, what is long-term to people? Because you're never going to get a Ferguson or a Wenger again. We've seen Pep and Klopp have probably been the only 2 at the top level in England to be able to sustain this level of time at a club, which is fair play to those 2 clubs for building that. And I think we can do similar to what they've done. I'm not looking for really 10 years. I think 5 to 7 to 8 years is the max that you can really ask for in this day and age. And also, if you look at the way that it's done in politics, the change of power in terms of, let's say American politics, White House, you get 4-year term, then you get another 4 years if you've done well and you're voted in, and then the 8 years you cease to continue power. You look at the way Wenger, his power almost became a problem at Arsenal, the amount of time he was there. I feel like I'm not looking for forever and ever, happily ever after, like some sort of Shreks. You know what I mean? I'm looking for a long-term plan. And I think, 2 terms, as they say in the White House, it would be good enough for me. I'm not asking for really any more than that. I think it's unrealistic to ask for more than that. And I think there is something healthy about changing power every 5, 6, 7, 8 years anyway, because it freshens things up. It allows people to come in with fresh ideas. The game also moves on as well. There's different eras, so you're not going to get another Ferguson situation. But the only 3 managers that I would have said potentially in this current climate for Chelsea that could have done a long term would have been Pochettino and maybe Nagelsmann. Maybe when he's a bit more experienced. Again, he's still very young. He's got more coaching experience than Lampard. Maybe there's another step after Leipzig. I don't know. Before he comes to Chelsea. But those 2 managers, I think, could do a long term. Tuchel, I don't think will be the guy because he does seem to butt heads with boards. But if Tuchel can do 2-3 years, Nagelsmann, hopefully, if he's more experienced and still available, I wouldn't have a massive problem with that. Again, with Tuchel, for me, as long as we continue with a consistent pathway, which we have done since Sarri, which is to play attacking football, promote young players in the fact that, Reece James came through and maybe that was prioritized over what Sarri wanted in his Napoli right back. Ruben Loftus-Cheek got his chance. Callum Hudson-Odoi got his chance. We've seen even more of that under Frank Lampard, where more youngsters get a chance. We're still trying to play attacking football. As long as that continues, and if the manager changes every 3-4 years, cool. But as long as that common club ethos continues, then I think we're doing fine in that respect. And obviously we have to win trophies as well. So I don't feel like this is the end, the be all and end all. Because as I said before, Frank Lampard was not the perfect manager to build long term with because he didn't have the experience, because he wasn't a top world class coach. So it's not like we've sacked Klopp or Pep. Do you know what I mean? We haven't sacked the pinnacle of management. So to be fair, I know there's a lot of things that he brings to the table where you wouldn't expect him to be sacked because he's at Chelsea. But there's a lot of things that he doesn't bring to the table where you can see how he has been sacked. And do you know what I mean? So it's a weird one. This super chat says, so DT was right about Chelsea and Lampard. Love and guidance to DT. Like I said, I don't have no beef, but DT doesn't get everything right for me to really care what he got right now. Do you know what I mean?
I can't lie. All due respect to DT, but he rates Arteta, so we can't have this conversation.
It's not even that.
I swear a month ago he wanted him out.
No, he's actually always wanted Arteta in, but do you know what I mean? I don't really care what.
DT, he did. You're right.
For me, I wouldn't go to DT for like mad amounts of knowledge about the game. So I don't really care if he's got this.
I mean, Lewis was even there. I never even watched what DT actually had to say. I don't really care that much.
Oh, I can't be bothered for AFTV previews in 2 months.
No, we'll be winning the league by that point.
The one thing about this, and we're going to wrap up maybe on the hour and a half mark because God knows what's going to happen for the rest of the day. I don't know what's going to happen with Tuchel. I need to re-energize. But what was the point I was going to make? I mean, we've seen a history with obviously the managers that he's put down at the bottom of the screen there. That, short stints, and obviously Chelsea are becoming very well known now for short stints. But I think it's an interesting sign, maybe potentially a positive, when rival fans are now shitting themselves that Chelsea might actually be able to make a serious challenge for top 4 this season, or make a serious challenge to get themselves back in. Because as I said, we're not very far off where we need to be objectively in terms of the season. A lot of people looked at it as, well, that means Lampard is not far off of meeting the objective. We need to give him more time. But also the board clearly have seen it as, we're not very far off where we need to meet objective wise. That means potentially we need to act now, because we need to act now. So the fact that rival fans are shitting themselves, the fact that they are now like, whoa, Chelsea might be serious, they're not playing games, they're very ruthless. Of course, it's ruthless with the wrong person for me, because I never wanted to see Lampard go through this. But it shows that, for me, it was made at the right time. Do you know what I mean? The decision had to be made. We needed to not only salvage our season, salvage the way that we go forward in terms of player development as well. And for me, it's better to have a more experienced person in terms of player development as well. I think we're leaving too much up to chance with Timo Werner, with Kai Havertz, with an inexperienced coaching staff. Whereas if you put them under people that not only that they know, but just have the experience on how to do. Tuchel's dealt with Neymar and Mbappe, for fuck's sake. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Just some more experience around a very inexperienced and characterless squad. Then that for me ups the percentage of the success. Laurenz, what's your final thoughts on today, man? I don't think anyone was expecting it to happen on a Monday morning, but here we are.
Yeah, that's it. Like I said, Lewis said he was kind of relieved and happy or whatever. That wasn't my first thought. Now that I've spoken about it for a little while and thought about it for longer, I do get that the idea and that feeling. But like I told you already earlier, when I first saw it, it was like, oh no, it's just like I didn't want to see it. But like I told you before, that's why I wasn't really sure in his appointment at the first place. But we also have to know that Sarri left for Juve. We didn't sack him, And who else would have really taken the job at the time? So the board were kind of forced into it. And yeah, maybe they did see him as a good hitting stop step, whatever you want to call it. And that isn't necessarily fair. And certain things have definitely gone wrong. And Lampard has made mistakes, and the board has made mistakes, and things didn't necessarily work out. But now we're in a different situation. There's no today we can cry about Frank, but as soon as Tuchel is appointed later on, we need to move forward. We need to hope that things get better. And to some extent, I am excited. And to hope and see different things. The only thing I would say is, now that we did sack him, we should have just sacked him after City.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. But
because then we had the 2 weeks off, or with just the more time in between.
The board didn't have who they wanted in place and ready to take over straight after, which is probably the point that they'll make, is that the reason why it's taken this long and the reason why it didn't happen. I mean, theoretically, it happened after Leicester, right? Everybody knew about it. The journalists knew. Frank Lampard probably knew. We didn't know, but really he was sacked after Leicester, and it was just about bringing in someone else, getting the final details crossed off, and making sure it was all ready to go before they actually announced it. So for me, it would have been better for Tuchel if he was ready to go from City. But I think from City they made the decision that they need to start seriously looking, and then from Leicester they made the decision that it was going to be over. So it's a difficult one. Lewis, what's your final thoughts, bro?
Yes, sooner Tuchel gets announced, the sooner we can look forward to try and see the results that we can get in the next few games. But I am happy with this. All due respect to Frank Lampard, I have to throw this disclaimer before I say anything else. But it's the right move for the club. Laurenz, you are right in saying that this could have been done a few weeks before, but I'd also think as well the club were probably more optimistic that they could have got another option, because Thomas Tuchel also isn't their first option, because if he was, we would have probably brought him in even before the Manchester City game, if we're going to really think about it. So I think Thomas Tuchel as well, this one, it's more been a case of the way we've been playing since the Manchester City game. We've had the win against Fulham, which was a massive scrape. We had the Leicester City defeat where we all looked just lethargic for 90 minutes. And they all also knew that Frank Lampard's job was on the line. And they didn't have a performance that looked like they were fighting for the manager's job.
Yeah.
So I think that also comes into play. And Thomas Tuchel also himself said he wasn't really too sure about taking this job midway through the season. But with the situation for both sides, they both realised that is best for both sides as well. So I'm happy with it. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you lot and say that my heart's broken or anything. Not really. I think Frank Lampard will return back in 5 or 10 years as a much more experienced manager. And then we can all jump on the roller coaster for now. But everyone mourn if they need to mourn. Get it all out of your system. But, yo, I'm excited for the second half of the season. I can't lie. I look forward. I do not look backwards. I am happy. I'm happy with the way we're moving. I'm happy that Chelsea is still ruthless. I'm not going to sit here and say Tuchel is guaranteed to change everything, but he is 3 times the manager Frank Lampard is. So I am very optimistic for the next few months.
Yeah. My final thoughts. I mean, guys, I've been very honest with you in the last couple of weeks about, the last week about where I stand. And like I said, I'm not happy because I'm never happy to see Frank Lampard get the axe, because that's the last thing I wanted. Hence why I didn't even want him to come in this early. I think it's sad. The shirt stays up, the pictures stay up. It's sad. It's 100% sad, but it was 100% necessary as well, in my opinion. And like I said, from an objective standpoint, there with someone with this little experience, there was always going to be a ceiling to what they could do for me. At this point, he needs more experience. He needs more time to really submit himself in the managerial scene, go to other clubs, learn the game. And then come back stronger and come back when he's at his pinnacle, because that's what we want to see it for Frank Lampard. We want to see him at his best, not how he has been in the last few weeks, especially. But people, like I said, get your mourning out, get your grieving out. If you're calling for Roman to leave, then for me, I don't know what to say to you. I mean, that's just how you've managed to process it. That's your business. But like I said, for me, I'm not going to be ever doing that, because it's adults making adult decisions in any workplace, as it always has to be done. And from the moment you start looking at it like that, then you're able to see it for what it is. And what it is a decision that had to really be made for the good of the season and probably the season after as well, if we're being honest. But people, I will see you again potentially later on. I don't know. We'll have to see when Tuchel is appointed, but I will go live when he is. I've been trying to get on a German expert in terms of talking about these German shortlists, but obviously the shortlist is done now because it will be Tuchel. And yeah, bless up. If I don't see you before tomorrow, the Battle of the North will continue as per usual. Well, not as per usual. The first show of the Battle of the North will continue tomorrow night with Saeed, with Big Steve, and with Grizz. I'm sure they're going to enjoy themselves after today. And make sure you people go and subscribe to Laurenz as well. The link will be in the description when this all processes as well. Obviously, subscribe to Dami, who was with us earlier, and subscribe to Lewis as well. Links will be in the description. I'm sure you know them already, but make sure you go and subscribe. And like I said, the reaction will continue. I'll be on the Premier League at 4:30 to talk with them as well. And yeah, hold your loved ones tight, people, because Chelsea on another roller coaster. Ruthless FC continues.
I'm right.
In a bit, people. It's always interesting following Chelsea.